Leighton Cusack from PoolTogether. He's going to be talking to us about how to make everyone rich, the future of no-loss prize games. Leighton, I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Just let me get my screen share going here. So yeah, thank you so much for having me, and shout out to all the people at ETH Global. It's such an awesome event. And for those of you who may not know, for PoolTogether, which is a protocol that I spend a lot of time working on, it actually started at an ETH Global event. So I hope everyone's inspired and really excited about what's going to come out of this event. So this talk is going to be about how to make everyone rich, the future of no-loss prize games. I'm really excited about it. I spent a lot of time trying to prepare it for you, so hopefully it's good. I'm going to talk about three main points in this presentation. The first is going to be basically just defining what are no-loss prize games. It's sort of a weird term, and I want to talk about what it is. The second is going to be making the argument for why no-loss prize games are actually an incredibly differentiated and really important economic tool to make everyone rich. And the third is going to be talking about the current state of no-loss prize games on Ethereum specifically. And it's going to be more of a call to action really to the community on this call to kind of showcase what is possible and showcase what is possible and what we can do with no-loss prize games on Ethereum. So with that in mind, let me jump in to this first part of the presentation. What are no-loss prize games? And this is a pretty simple definition I have for you, which is they are no-loss savings accounts offering the chance to win prizes. So a typical savings account, right? You deposit money and it has a couple attributes. You don't lose that money you deposit, and you can take that money out whenever you want to. It also has a third attribute, which is that you earn some form of return on your money. If you're in typical legacy finance, that's going to be less than 1%. And if you're in DeFi, maybe that's a bit more. And if you're in yield farming, maybe it's even greater. But that's sort of what a savings account is. What a prize game is it has the same characteristics as a savings account in the sense of you have no loss and you can withdraw your money at any time. But instead of earning an interest return that's just applied on the capital, you have a chance to win prizes. And those prizes are derived from the interest that accrues on everyone's deposited capital, which means the prizes can actually be in the hundreds of thousands, millions, even billions of dollars is realistic, because there's so much capital that's accruing money. So that's the simple definition of what no-loss prize games are. And I want to talk about why I believe these are uniquely suited to help make people wealthy. I think a lot of people, when they first hear of no-loss prize games, they kind of think that's like a cool concept. It's sort of like nifty. It's maybe gimmicky would be a word you use to describe it. So it sounds interesting, but it also doesn't necessarily sound super important. And this is the argument I'm going to try and make to you right now, is that it actually is a very important and highly differentiated financial tool that we need a lot more of. So to make that argument, let's first look at this. This is the typical risk return profile, right? So the number one rule of investing, you go to Investing 101, it's that the more risk you take on, the more potential return you have, the less risk you take on, the lower potential return. So at the very bottom, you have like a savings account, right? That's super low risk. You should never lose your money, super low return. As you go up, you have like your friend's startup, which would be a much higher risk and much higher return. So this is, what all financial products, there's only a few things listed here, but you could map all financial products on this risk return curve. What's really interesting about no-loss prize games is they actually break this fundamental rule of investing, because it's a product that has, again, no loss, has a risk profile that's the same as a savings account, but it has a return potential that is exponentially higher. It's actually like investing in your friend's startup or investing in even like a normal lottery, right? That's like what the return potential is. Now, obviously the caveat here is it has higher variance, right? So you don't win every time, but it does have a return potential. So the point I want to make is that these products, these financial products that are on this line, right? Savings accounts, bonds, stocks, those products work really well if you're already rich and if you want to be richer. That's who those products are designed for. So for example, right, let's look at a savings account. If you're earning 5% APR on $1 million, that's $50,000 a year. That's pretty cool. That actually is going to be meaningful to you. You could live off that. But if you only have $1,000 in savings and you're earning 5% a year, that's only $50 a year. It's not going to really meaningfully move the needle on your financial picture. So a savings account works well if you're already wealthy. It works well for compound wealth. It does not work well if you're not already wealthy. Going up to like the other extreme example, investing in a startup, right? If you're wealthy, this works well. Why? Because you don't need instant access to your capital. If you have a flat tire, you don't need to liquidate your stocks to pay to fix that flat tire, right? So you have long-term time horizons with an ability to lock capital for a long time. And conversely, though, if you're poor, again, right, you don't have that opportunity because you need even the capital that you have essentially is your savings. Your investing capital and your savings capital are the same bucket, and so you can't lock money away because what happens if you do get a flat tire, you have a medical emergency, you need access to that capital right away. So most financial products are built for people who are already wealthy. They're built to help rich people get richer. And I don't say that in a bad way, like that probably sounds really bad, but I just think it's a statement of fact, right? If you look at like, what are the preferences for people who already have a lot of money and what are products built to these people can tolerate loss, right? Long-term time horizons, they don't need instant access to their capital, and they want compounding returns. If you already have a lot of money, you're just looking to grow your money, right? You're just trying to go from $1 million to 1.1, 1.2, et cetera. People who have very little cash, they have a totally different need matrix, right? Totally different preferences. They need no loss because their cash, again, their cash investments are their savings, so you can't risk it. They need instant liquidity. They can't lock it up for a long time. And compounding returns just don't work. If you only have $1,000, if you only have $100, if you only have $10, it doesn't matter what your compounding rate is, it will not work. You need an opportunity for outsized returns. So this is all the economic argument for why no-loss prize games are actually a very highly differentiated financial product from an economic perspective, and why they're so important to help people create wealth. Once people create wealth, obviously they can graduate into other traditional financial products that help rich people get more wealth. But this is the economic perspective on it. So that's one half of the argument. The other half I want to just touch on a bit more briefly is the psychological side, right? So why are no-loss prize games really important psychologically? So psychologically speaking, the financial tools we have in our world broadly fall in two categories, right? You have ones that are fun, but destroy your wealth. So that would be like lotteries, gambling, sports bettings. You could think of this mathematically as like negative expected value financial activities, but they're very enjoyable because they take human psychology seriously. They're built around human psychology. And then you have products that are designed by economists, right? Every economist will tell you, or a financial advisor will tell you, just put your money in a 401k, put it in an index fund, you'll be fine. Obviously, if you're on this call, you probably already ignore that advice. But you have products that are very boring. They don't take human psychology seriously, but they're helpful for wealth creation. They're economically sensible. There's very few things that bridge this divide because economics typically, or financial products typically don't take psychology very seriously. And these fun wealth destroying products don't take economics very seriously. And so no-loss prize games really sit at a very interesting intersection where it is both fun and wealth creating. It's using the elements that make wealth destroying activities fun, which is chance, variance, unpredictability, the opportunity for outsized meaningful returns. And it's combining that with action, a behavior that's actually healthy. One example of this from a no-loss prize game that's on the blockchain right now is a user who deposited $10, had it for 30 days in the prize pool. They could remove it at any time, and they won $1,600, right? So there's no other financial product that offers that opportunity, right? What else could that user have done? Sure, they could have maybe bought a token that potentially would accrue that much value over that time frame, but you would still have the risk of loss. So for these two reasons, this economic reason and the psychological reason, I think no-loss prize games are actually a very highly differentiated and very important economic primitive. And it's one that does exist in the real world, although it hasn't been fully, I don't think, built out to what it could be. And it exists in the blockchain world a little bit, but not very much. So I want to talk about now, talking about where we're at with no-loss prize games on Ethereum. So PoolTogether is a protocol for no-loss prize games on Ethereum. It was launched about 1 year ago, and it's a protocol to really help developers and users explore this design space, this really highly segmented space of high potential return, high variance, low risk financial products. And this, I wanted to kind of give a summary of where we're at right now. And PoolTogether, as it's currently instantiated, has found a decent level of success in the Ethereum space. There's 12,000 users of the protocol, which if you compare that to, that's more than Synthetics or Instadap or some other of these very awesome and well-established protocols. $33,000 in prizes have been given out by the protocol, and it has a very large global popularity footprint, particularly actually outside of like Western English-speaking markets. It's actually much more popular outside of English-speaking countries. So that's kind of where we're at right now. But the problem is that we're really only scratching the surface of what's possible with no-loss prize games, and that's why I'm here talking to hopefully a bunch of engineers and developers and creators who are interested in pushing the space forward. So right now, there's only 2 no-loss prize games on the protocol. One is a DAI prize pool that's weekly and has one single winner, and one is a USDC prize pool that's daily and has one single winner. So what I'm really excited to talk to you guys about today is PoolTogether v3, which is the new version of the protocol that is designed to open the universe for no-loss prize games. And it's actually launching in conjunction. It's going to be on mainnet, launching next week. But there's actually already some hackers who maybe are on this call who are in ETH Global. We have some bounties who are hacking on the protocol right now. So I want to talk a little bit now just about v3, what's now possible with no-loss prize games, and yeah, that's pretty much what I want to talk about. So the v3 enables a whole new world of different prize game varieties. So I mentioned right now, there's these 2 prize games. There's one that's in DAI, one that's in USDC. They're both a single winner. One has a weekly time frame, one has a daily time frame. With the v3, what it does is it enables developers to create their own prize games. And developers can manipulate these 3 kind of core parameters, which sound very simple, but there's a lot of room for creativity here. So the first is frequency. This is maybe the most simple one. How often is the prize triggered, right? It could be every minute, it could be every hour, it could be every day, it could be every year. So you can choose that. The second is yield sources. Thus far, the protocol has only been using Compound, but the v3 of the PoolTogether protocol is already integrated with both Compound and also Y-earn Volts. And also, we're obviously working on a lot more integrations. We'll be integrating with Aave and a lot of other yield sources. So the idea here is that the PoolTogether protocol sits as really this no-loss gamification layer on top of all these yield sources. So yield source is another way developers can change things. The final thing here is the place that has the most room for really interesting creativity: prize distribution. So this refers to basically both how much people win, how many winners there are, and how winners are determined, right? So you can imagine a prize pool like we have right now. It has 1 random winner a week, or you could have one that has 100 random winners a week, or you could have one where everyone wins a 1% return and one person wins, all the rest. Or you could have one where half of the money goes to a community managed DAO and half the money goes to a random winner, or half the money goes to Gitcoin grants and half the money goes to a winner. So there's all sorts of prize game varieties that can now be created with the PoolTogether v3 protocol. So this is kind of the playground for developers to work with. The other thing I want to touch on is the v3 protocol also really upgrades the actual prize pool experience for the user. So there's a few major new features here that I just wanted to highlight. One is the prize games can have their the way it's designed is the prize pool is a non-custodial contract. You'll see that at the bottom there, no admin keys. So people deposit their funds into this contract. It's not upgradable, which is awesome. Makes it much more decentralized and secure. But the prize strategy, which determines how winnings are distributed, is a contract that is upgradable. So what can happen then is people can change the parameters of how prizes are distributed via community vote once a prize game has already been established. So those are both those are kind of the first and the bottom. Those are both really awesome new features of the prize pools. We've also built in what I'm most excited about, referral rewards and deposit rewards into the prize pools themselves. So that's awesome. Obviously, that's a huge part of growth in any type of financial product in the legacy system. So it makes sense that we would replicate that on a blockchain-enabled financial product. And so that's actually built in at the protocol level. And improved randomness functionality with Chainlink. Sorry. So losing my voice there a little bit. Okay. So that's where we're at with the V3 and where we're at with no loss prize games on Ethereum. So hopefully what you've gotten from this talk is that no loss prize games are very important, and that you now have an amazing tool to bring these to the world. And I think that there's a lot of creativity that's been unexplored, even in just replicating what's already existing in the mainstream financial system, but also in using these tools to create something that's far, far better. So that's the conclusion of my talk here. And I want to open it up for any questions.
Thank you so much, Leighton, for that amazing talk. I think you kind of did a really good overview of how people can take advantage of this thing. So we have a couple questions coming in, but also given our delay here, I'll also encourage everybody who's going to hear this thing in 30 seconds to post more questions in the chat so we can queue them up as well. Awesome. One of the first questions that I have for you is, can the interest be distributed back to all the players playing in ADAI or any other token? And kind of how does that work?
Yeah, so it can. Technically not ADAI, just because Aave, we haven't integrated with Aave yet, but we will. That'll be done soon. I actually think someone at the hackathon is working on it right now. But you could do it with the other yield. Sorry, I'm really losing my voice. The other yield sources that we've done. So that is technically possible.
Awesome. So I think we're compiling the list of some of the other ones.
Okay, clearly I need a break. I'm having a hard time. Having a hard time. I guess I'm used to quarantine. I don't talk too much.
No worries. So let's see. So one question kind of we're seeing is maybe an equivalent of like a free rider problem. And this is defined interestingly, which is if you kind of put money into the pool late, you still get the same chances to win, and it's still like the equal probability that goes on for that participant. So have you given thought about sort of waiting or giving some more tickets to the early depositors, or kind of like just making it sort of like an unfair game to the advantage people who are actually in first?
Yeah, so I mean, we haven't thought about that too much, but I think that's the beauty of like this V3 is all of those types of things can be implemented via the prize strategy. And so that's what the community wants, they can come and say, hey, let's update the prize strategy to have this sort of special weighting or this sort of special selection mechanism, and that can all be done. And so personally, I haven't given a ton of thought to that, but I think that's a really exciting idea, and now that's actually possible to build. It's a really big playground. That's why, I mean, when you hear like those 3 parameters, it doesn't sound like that much, but it actually is like there's a lot you can do with it.
No, it's amazing. Yeah, I think this is kind of the perfect answer to that. The platform lets you do that, even though PoolTogether as the app, the way team designs it, is not prioritizing it. So that's awesome. Another question we have is, obviously we're DeFi's kind of known for the money Lego sort of theme here, and you were kind of leveraging a lot of these building blocks from other protocols to offer these returns. Right now, PoolTogether uses Compound. Kind of how do you think about integrating other sort of protocols to either get anywhere from more safety to a bigger reward for the participants, and sort of what kind of goes into these types of decisions as you think about it?
Yeah, so I mean, the main decision obviously is risk, right? If you're doing no loss, you're going to try and minimize risk. But I should say the V3 protocol does have already wire and vaults integrated into it. So it has Compound and wire as the two. So we're mostly looking at risk. We're looking at differentiation in terms of like assets that are offered. And also we're looking at returns, obviously. That's the obvious one. So those are them. I do think we're hoping that, I think when it comes to like community and governance, that yield sources and like what yield sources are approved to be used by the pool builder will be like one of the main points of that. Because I see it as, parallel to if Aave or if Compound is like adding a new collateral type, that's a really important decision for that platform. for PoolTogether, adding a new yield source is like equally equivalent in importance. And I think we want to make sure it's no loss, like that's the only non-negotiable. And then beyond that, we're looking at those other factors.
And in a way, it's battle tested because you have to think about it from the security standpoint. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, again, I think it's just another question sort of on the similar line. So maybe if you have any additional lines to comment on, that'd be great. But if not, I think you sort of answered it already. But sort of like when you are making these types of decisions, like how do you think about you as the PoolTogether team making these integrations work versus sort of just opening it up for anybody else to plug in and to having that be the way other liquidity providers come in to interface with the protocol?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is open, right? In the sense of like, it's open source software, anyone can do it. I do think that what we would like to have we would like to build a community around the protocol that does gatekeep to some degree the yield sources, because the yield sources is the number one risk, right? For people, if people deposit into a yield source that doesn't secure their money, it's no longer no loss. So yes, people can come and obviously take the code and hook it up to whatever yield source they want. But I do think it's important to steward a community around the PoolTogether protocol that does say, yes, we want to be as open as possible, but also we're going to try and safeguard users' funds. No,
absolutely. And kind of one of the things that I really like about PoolTogether is that you've effectively sort of unlocked a whole new different part of the audience that ideally would not jump into crypto first because of the risks or just the lack of sort of deep know-how on how do these things work. Yeah. So what's going to be your experience like sort of making PoolTogether and sort of putting it in front of people who may not necessarily understand crypto or really realize kind of how all this thing works in the background, but overall get the point of no loss lottery? Yeah.
Well, it's been super fun. I mean, I think people love it, right? I mean, it's a very intuitive idea, and it's been really, really, I love educating people. And so I love it. And like, it's been cool with, obviously the coolest thing that's happened in the space in like last 6 weeks is Uniswap, right? With the token. And like, it was really cool because a bunch of people had used Uniswap solely in a white labeled fashion on PoolTogether's website. And so like, we got to go back like through all those emails with all those people who are like, I have no idea what it just did, and tell them like, hey, now you have this Uniswap airdrop. So I don't know, that's just a fun little anecdote, but like, it's really fun to bring people into the space and help them understand like how cool this is.
Any other surprises you've seen from just what your users react to? Sorry to put you on the spot, but
one surprise is how long people keep their money in the pool. Like people, it's like 80% of people who have deposited in PoolTogether have never withdrawn. And sure, like, wow. Yes, recently gas fees are a factor there, but that was even before gas fees. So it is really interesting how sticky the capital is. And I think that does point to like, right now, PoolTogether isn't probably reaching like the DeFi degens so much, right? It's reaching more like the Argent wallet users or the people who just are like crypto curious, and it's more that. And so I think I guess maybe my encouragement to like the builders to turn it around a little bit is that remember that like crypto Twitter is not your it means nothing. Like it's a cool thing, but like there's a lot of people who are not on it, and there's a lot of ideas that get recycled and recycled and recycled because we're all hearing the same thing. Don't be afraid to like come up with a different idea and appeal to a different audience. And like, maybe you won't get as many like Twitter followers, but it might still be really rewarding.
I would trade providing value to people over Twitter followers any day. And on that note, please follow Leighton and myself on Twitter. It's a wonderful message to end on. And I want to thank